And here's another Saints timeout. January 26, 1997 featured the gathering of 72,301 fans into the Louisiana Superdome for Super Bowl 31 between the New England Patriots, led by head coach Bill Parcells with an 11-5 regular season mark, and the Green Bay Packers, led by Mike Holmgren with a 13-3 record. The game was kept close in the first quarter. Then the Packers started the separation with 17 unanswered second quarter points.
There's Favre. Antonio Freeman. They're not going to catch him. Touchdown, Green Bay, as the Packers recapture the lead. No blitz this time. A pass intercepted by Mike Pryor. Pryor stays on his feet. Pryor gets the Packers back to the 26. On the 2, first and goal. Here's Favre.
One official said he did get in.
Yes, he thinks he did.
And it looked like the ball was inside the pylon and did break the play.
New England tried to catch up in the third quarter,
but Curtis Martin is in the end zone. Martin broke through the middle.
But one play later, that changed, as for the first time in Super Bowl history, the MVP award went to primarily a special teams player in Green Bay's Desmond Howard. He had 154 kickoff return yards, including this 99-yard run back for a TD.
Kick goes to Desmond Howard at the 1. Desmond Howard is off. You better turn it on or he's gone. Desmond Howard all the way into the Patriot end zone, 99 yards.
Howard would have another 90 punt return yards, setting a Super Bowl record in combined net yards gained at 244. Patriots' Drew Bledsoe threw 4 interceptions, and Packers defensive end Reggie White set a then Super Bowl record with 3 sacks.
There's Bledsoe. Down he goes.
And there's Reggie White. And that's that hump move. That's the one. He learned that from Howie Long. Reggie White's going to take over this game right now.
Green Bay won 35-21. The rebuilding of the Saints for 1997 began on January 28th when Mike Ditka was named head coach. Here's the ironic words he started his first press conference with.
I thought this would be real easy, but it's not. Life to me is about challenges and climbing mountains, and that's what I intend to do, try to climb another mountain.
He later stated if he couldn't bring the Saints to the playoffs by the end of his third season, then he didn't deserve to be the coach here. He would bring in fan favorite wide receiver Danny Abramowitz to be the new offensive coordinator. The two had worked together for 1 year in Chicago, and Zaven Yularian was named defensive coordinator. And his side of the ball accumulated 59 sacks in 1997. Offensive woes continued to haunt the Saints. Be it play calling issues or ball handling problems, the club would set a record with 55 turnovers. Approximately half of the roster would turn over going into this campaign, and for the first time in Saints history, they would start the regular season in the month of August 31st at the St. Louis Rams. And while the Saints would lose that contest by 14, return man Eric Gulliford would score a 102-yard kickoff return for touchdown.
Gulliford from the end zone. Fake reverse. Gulliford. Only the kicker in his way. Eric Gulliford in the open field, and Gulliford will travel into the end zone.
Game 2 at home against the San Diego Chargers in a 20-6 loss, ironically, had former Saints quarterback Jim Everett starting for San Diego, and of course the Saints had acquired Heath Schuler in the offseason in return for a 3rd and 5th round draft choice to the Redskins. A great example of Ditka's impulsive moves, he had made a bet with a member of Saints personnel for $50 that Danny Werfel would be picked in the top 100 selections of the draft. Analysts had Werfel going in the 7th round, and to no surprise, Ditka selected Werfel early in the 4th round. And then going into his old homestead of Chicago, the Saints were 1-4. New Orleans would squeak out a 20-17 win thanks to this long Mario Bates run.
Here's the handoff, and Bates with a quick hold. Now the chase is on. Mangum runs after him. No flags, touchdown New Orleans. I think he's out of the doghouse.
And near game's end, Heath Schuler on a long pass where he actually had his eyes closed.
Fontenot to center. Schuler, deep left side. Got it! Randall Hill in a foot race. Hill, 89-yard touchdown strike. That's an excellent job by a wide receiver staying with the football no matter what.
Another example of the club's offensive woes was on October 12th at home against the Falcons. While the Saints defense accumulated 5 sacks, the Falcons defense would get quarterbacks Heath Schuler and Danny Werfel a total of 10 times behind the line. The Saints would lose that contest 23-17. On October 19th, the Saints would lose to Carolina 13-0, ending a 216-game regular season streak of not allowing a shutout. Ironically, the next week, and for the first time in Saints history, they would be shut out back-to-back. This time the San Francisco go 23-0. Things would start to turn around a little bit on November 9th with a 13-10 victory over Oakland, thanks to a Doug Bryant 44-yard field goal with 2:55 left. And then when the Raiders tried to come back, Saints safety Sammy Knight would intercept the ball to clinch the victory. 1 week later at home in a wacky game against the Seahawks, the Saints would turn over the ball 5 times, Seattle 4 times. It wound up setting a then NFL record for fewest seconds elapsed in the extra period at 17. Here are the 2 plays that gave the Saints the 20-17 victory.
Saints defense playing a very strong game. They gave up that one big play. Moved to James McKnight, the game-time touchdown.
Under pressure, he's hit, intercepted. Tubbs has it. Winford Tubbs dives down to the 22. Mark Fields hit Moon, and Tubbs comes up with a pick. Doug Bryant coming on for the field goal, a 38-yarder. Saints win in overtime.
A few days later, Ditka brought in quarterback Billy Joe Holbert after Heath Schuler was gone for the year with a turf toe. Story goes that Ditka was so frustrated with his quarterback position amongst Schuler, Werfel, and Doug Nussmeier that when Holbert came in to try out for the Saints, Ditka actually walked out on the tryout telling a staff member, if you think he's any good, sign him. After the November 23rd loss at Atlanta, 20-3, Mike Ditka had some very interesting and frustrating comments.
I'm probably the wrong guy for this job, I'll say that. Probably better off getting somebody else.
One day later, he would retract those comments. Then on November 30th, at the Carolina Panthers, with Billy Joe Holbert starting, the Saints would walk away with a 16-13 win thanks to a Doug Bryant 45-yard field goal with 5 seconds left. The key play on that drive was a Billy Joe Holbert to Randall Hill pass play. The Saints would finish the campaign 6-10. Upon season's conclusion, running backs coach Tom Moore would lead the Saints to become the offensive coordinator for the Indianapolis Colts. Many had given credit to Tom Moore for helping the Saints in their first victory of the year against the Lions, since he was formerly Detroit's offensive coordinator. February 15, 1998, linebacker Winford Tubbs signs with the 49ers after setting a Saints season record with 160 total tackles. Story goes Saints offered him a 4-year, $10 million deal, but refused to have the last year invalidated if he went to the Pro Bowl. 49ers end up giving him a 5-year, $14 million deal with said Pro Bowl clause. Tight end Irv Smith also went to the 49ers. After retooling, it was time for opening day, September 6, once again at the St. Louis Rams, a contest the Saints would win 24-17. However, starting quarterback Billy Joe Holbert was lost for the season with an Achilles tendon injury. The contest included this defensive touchdown.
First down and 10. Banks will give to Moore. The ball is out. This one is a fumble. It's picked up. This is a touchdown for Joe Johnson.
Great pressure inside again by defensive tackle Leroy Glover, who beat the backside scoop block with quickness.
Defensive end Joe Johnson also started the season with a new 5-year, $22 million contract. A few days later, the club would sign quarterback Billy Joe Tolliver to fill Holbert's roster spot. The Saints started 3-0, including a 19-13 win at Indianapolis led by former Saints head coach Jim Mora. Ironically, 2 one-time Saints interim head coaches were working for Mike Ditka, Rick Venturi, and Dick Stanfel. With just under 3 minutes left in regulation, a Colts punt would pin the Saints down at their own 4-yard line, where quarterback Danny Werfel had to come back and lead the tying charge.
Werfel, he's going deep. He's got a man open, and it is caught by John Dawkins. What a huge play to keep this thing alive. Picks up 44 yards on 4th and 17. Werfel into the end zone. They're battling for it, and it is caught, and it is a touchdown for Andre Hastings.
In overtime, Saints cornerback Tyrone Drakeford makes the key play.
First down and 10. Peyton Manning from the 44-yard line. 3 wide receivers in the game. Looking outside. This will be picked off. Tyrone Drakeford takes it the other way, make it the 36-yard line. What a huge play.
Shortly afterwards, quarterback Danny Werfel hits the winning touchdown pass.
Bootleg from Werfel. He's got his tight end wide open. Cleveland past the 20. He'll go into the end zone. Touchdown. This one's over. No flags. New Orleans will win 19-13.
On October 4th, the Saints would lose their first game of the season at home versus the Patriots. Each team would score a defensive touchdown. Saints kicker Doug Bryant ties the game at 27, thanks to yardage acquired by this Andre Hastings punt return.
High snap handled by Tufa. The bounce inside the 5. Foley ball to the goal line. They pick it up. It's a live ball.
Live ball.
Picked up by reserve wide receiver Andre Hastings. Hastings still in bounds and knocked out at the 25. What an improbable, unconscionable play this late in the game.
The play started on an odd note as Saints player Earl Little tried to kneel on the ball in the end zone when Hastings took the ball from him and ran it down the sidelines. However, with under 2 minutes left, Patriots quarterback Drew Bledsoe slowly drove into field goal range with Adam Vinatieri hitting the winning 27-yarder. Some season highlights included defensive tackle Roy Glover getting 10 sacks. The Saints defense overall scored 9 touchdowns. Sammy Knight, who joined the Saints as an undrafted free agent a year earlier, had 2 touchdowns along with 6 interceptions. One of those TDs came in a loss at the Vikings for 91 yards.
3rd and 3. That's Carter in motion. And the quick toss is back away and intercepted. Sammy Knight may go all the way. The Vikings trying to catch it. Touchdown Saints. Second interception of the game for Sammy Knight.
In that contest, Saints running back Aaron Craver was credited with a 100-yard kickoff return touchdown where he was actually touched down early in the run, but the officials missed the call. On October 14th, the Saints try and boost a struggling quarterback position where Mike Ditka claims Kerry Collins off of waivers from the Panthers after Collins was cut over what some felt was off-field issues. One day earlier on radio, general manager Bill Kaharick stated that he had no interest in the Saints signing Collins. Collins would be in and out of the lineup for the rest of the season, but notably on December 6th at home versus Dallas in a 22-3 win, Collins would tie a then Saints record with this touchdown pass.
Collins going deep. Hastings is going to take it all the way. Gary Collins threw a strike, 89 yards.
That's what the Cowboys were worried about. Kevin Mathis out there playing with a cast on his arm. Andre Hastings gets by him.
2 days later, fullback Ray Zellers is waived over disciplinary issues between him and Mike Ditka. Zellers was suspended for 1 game in '96 under Jim Mora. The Saints would fall to 6-8 after 14 games and yet controlled their own destiny into the postseason. The key game was December 20th at Arizona. The back-and-forth contest had the Saints taking a 17-16 lead with 1:27 left in the contest.
3rd and 12. Collins has some time. Touchdown! Cameron Cleland, the rookie tight end. And the Saints are in the lead. Great effort, great drive by the Saints and Kerry Collins.
On the ensuing drive, Cardinals quarterback Jake Plummer would have 2 long runs to help set up the winning field goal.
Jackie up and good. Officially 36 yards for Chris Jackie. The former Packer zeros are up.
The Saints would be eliminated from playoff contention and finish the season once again at 6-10. Mike Ditka in 1999 made things interesting. He had previously cut his leading receivers in back-to-back seasons, first Randall Hill over showboating, then Sean Dawkins over a lack of downfield blocking. He became the first Saints head coach to win 2 consecutive season openers. By mid-October '99, his frustration led him to overriding offensive coordinator Danny Abramowitz's play-calling duties, and it was reported defensive coordinator Zaven Yularian was frustrated because he felt Ditka had some players out of position. The Saints fined Ditka $20,000 for grabbing part of his anatomy in front of critical fans on the way to the locker room after a loss to Tennessee. At halftime of a 31-3 loss at the Giants, he stated after New York completed a Big Ben pass, quote, "We're the elixir of the league," close quote, in making other teams better. After trading a second-round pick to the Rams for wide receiver Eddie Kennison, Ditka gave up the remaining Saints 1999 draft, plus a first and third-round pick in 2000 in return for the Redskins' 5th overall pick to select Heisman Trophy winner running back Ricky Williams, who would later be known that season for not taking his helmet off during interviews after practice. Williams would be injured on opening day in a 19-10 Saints home win over Carolina and would miss playing time throughout the season.
Doug Bryan puts his foot into the football, and the '99 season is underway. This is Bates from the 6 across the 10, 15, 20. Ball comes free, lying on the carpet, picked up by the Saints. They're going to take it in for the touchdown. Tyrone Drakeford picks up the loose ball, and on the very first play of this game, the Saints have a score, a 14-yard return of the Bates fumble.
Well, that's one hell of a way to start a season, Jim.
Drakeford's fumble recovery for touchdown set an NFL opening day record with fewest seconds elapsed before first score, 12 seconds. The next week at San Francisco, the Saints had a 21-14 lead in the fourth quarter before the 49ers tied the game. Then with 1:46 to go, defensive back Lance Schulters runs back a 64-yard interception for the game-winning touchdown, 28-21 49ers. Then at Chicago with 2 minutes to go, the Saints gave up a 10-0 lead via 2 touchdown passes from Shane Matthews to Curtis Conway, 14-10 Bears. The main highlight a week later in a 20-17 loss versus the Falcons was this, the longest touchdown pass in Saints history.
Joe Holbert downfield, pass underthrown, but still caught. Eddie Kennison, 90 yards for the touchdown.
It starts with protection up front, and Ray Buchanan, who was in the Pro Bowl last year with 7 interceptions and has been beaten now 3 weeks in a
a row for a long touchdown.
It would get worse in the Superdome on Halloween Day. Despite Ricky Williams setting a club record with 40 carries plus the Saints having the ball for 40 minutes and 50 seconds, they had to come back with a Doug Bryan field goal with under 30 seconds to go for a 16-14 lead. The Browns would still have time left for an unbelievable finish.
One chance left, 2 seconds. Out, long high ball, lots of guys going for it. Fighting the end zone, it's caught by the Browns! The Cleveland Browns have won the game on a 56-yard pass. And the legends are built on plays like that. I've seen everything.
This is unbelievable. What more can go wrong for the New Orleans Saints?
Wow. The look on Mike Ditka's face about says it all.
Browns wide receiver Kevin Johnson was able to catch the deflected pass because Saints cornerback Tyrone Drakeford was late on the play and inadvertently deflected the ball upward after safety Sammy Knight tried to knock it down. The Saints would stumble to 2-12 when on Christmas Eve, quarterback Jake Delhomme, who was cut in preseason and re-signed in late November, got his first NFL start and would lead the club to a 31-24 victory that included touchdown passes to Keith Poole and Eddie Kennison, plus Delhomme rushing in another, but the struggling defense stepped up.
2nd and 10 from the New Orleans 42. Aikman, play action, looks, throws underneath to Smith. Emmett Smith wrapped up and the ball comes free. Picked up by Weary. There goes Fred Weary. Only Aikman to beat. Weary's going to go down the far sideline. Touchdown, New Orleans. A 58-yard return, and the Saints are back in control in a jubilant Louisiana Superdome.
And later, Mark Fields would make the saving interception on the Cowboys' last offensive drive.
From the New Orleans 6-yard line, Aikman drops, looks, pumps, throws over the middle, incomplete. In fact, it may be intercepted. It went out of the hands of LaFleur. Keith Mitchell jarred the ball free, and it went right into the hands of Mark Fields in the end zone. With a minute and 4 seconds left, it looks like the Saints are going to win this thing and score a major upset.
Story goes, Saints owner Tom Benson was ready to bring back Ditka for the 2000 season, going into the club's final game on January 2nd at Carolina. But when the club lost 45-13, Benson would fire Mike Ditka, general manager Bill Kaharick, and some 19 other front office employees 3 days later in one of the biggest house cleanings in club history. And now here's our list, some of the better Saints players for the decade of the 90s. Quarterback, Jim Everett. Running backs, Dalton Hilliard and Mario Bates. Fullback, Lorenzo Neal. Wide receivers, Quinn Early and Michael Haynes. Tight end, Wesley Walls. Offensive tackles, William Rofe and Richard Cooper. Guards, Jim Dombrowski and Chris Port. Center, Joe Hilgenberg. Defensive ends, Joe Johnson and Brady Smith. Defensive tackles, Leroy Glover and Wayne Martin. Linebackers, Mark Fields, Vaughn Johnson, Winford Tubbs, and Ronaldo Turnbull. Cornerbacks, Vince Buck and Jimmy Spencer. Safeties, Gene Atkins and Sammy Knight. Kicker, Doug Bryan. Punter, Mark Royals, who also serves as our holder. Return specialist, Tyrone Hughes. Special teams coverage, J.J. McCleskey, and deep snapper, Kendall Gammon. The rebuilding of the Saints began with the hiring of general manager Randy Mueller and the head of non-football operations Arnie Filko on January 27, 2000. Mueller in turn hired former Saints defensive coordinator Jim Haslett as head coach on February 3rd.
You know, obviously you need to find football players too. It's not a track meet, but I think if you can get players that can run and do some different things, that's going to help you.
The club soon after began retooling the roster with free agent signings including quarterback Jeff Blake, defensive tackle Norman Hand, wide receivers Joe Horn, Willie Jackson, and Jake Reed, tight end Andrew Glover, and safety Darren Perry. The Saints' first pick in the college draft was defensive end Darren Howard early in the second round. Saints offensive coordinator Mike McCarthy helped orchestrate a July 31st trade where the Saints sent a 2001 third-round draft choice to the Packers in return for quarterback Aaron Brooks and tight end Lamont Hall. Training camp was moved from across Wisconsin to Nicholls State University in Thibodaux. The Saints started the campaign 1-3. Following a bye week, ex-Saints running back Fred McAfee was brought back to help an ailing special teams coverage unit. The Saints would win their next 6 in a row, where in the last of those wins at Carolina, running back Ricky Williams was lost for the rest of the regular season with an ankle injury. 1 week later, in a home loss to the Raiders, quarterback Jeff Blake was lost for the season with a lower leg injury. As a result, Aaron Brooks would start and assist the Saints the next week in a 31-24 win at the St. Louis Rams. Only the third time in NFL history that a quarterback starting his first game defeated the previous season's Super Bowl champions. It was a sloppy game in many regards. While the Saints kept the ball for 39 minutes and 26 seconds, they also had 17 penalties for 116 yards and 2 turnovers. St. Louis had 14 penalties for 132 yards and 4 turnovers. The Saints defense had 6 sacks, including one on the last play of the game by defensive end Darren Howard to seal the win. The next week, the Saints would lose to the Broncos 38-23, where Denver running back Mike Anderson set a Saints opponent's record with 251 rushing yards. The club would rebound at San Francisco on December 10th, down by 10 in the fourth quarter. Brooks hits wide receiver Willie Jackson for a 22-yard touchdown pass.
2nd and 5, Brooks. He sees nothing and has to scramble. Buys time, he's got a man open in the end zone. Touchdown, Willie Jackson. Just like that.
He threads the needle 40 yards down the field. And not only threads it, he throws a strike.
After a 49ers punt, the Saints would drive from their own 32-yard line. A 4th down run by Brooks kept the drive going.
Brooks, and he's got the room to do it. Aaron Brooks gets the first down and more. He goes over 100 yards on the day, getting 10 there.
Later, running back Chad Morton fumbled near the goal line, but it was ruled the ball went out at the half-yard line, where replay challenge ruled inconclusive. Next play, fullback Terrell Smith also fumbles, but recovers it himself. With 49 seconds left, running back Terry Allen gets in to seal the victory 31-27. After defeating Atlanta in Game 15, 23-17, the Saints clinched their second-ever division title with the loss by the Rams a day later. The regular season finale on Christmas Eve had the Saints losing to the Rams in the Superdome 26-21, where New Orleans native Marshall Faulk had 220 rushing yards. Statistically, it was a sound season for the black and gold. The defense would accumulate 66 sacks, where defensive tackle Leroy Glover had 17, defensive end Joe Johnson 12, defensive end Darren Howard 11. The defense would also score 5 touchdowns, 2 by linebacker Keith Mitchell.
Furline with a pump fake, dodges trouble and gets hit from behind. He says his arm was going forward. The Saints pick up the football, and there he goes. Keith Mitchell, no whistle and no flags. Keith Mitchell will go all the way for the touchdown.
1 by Darren Smith and 2 by safety Sammy Knight.
Herb in the lone setback behind Chase.
Oh, throws it out. It's going to be picked up, and it's going to be a touchdown. Sammy Knight taking it all the way home, and the Saints jump on top.
Knight also had 5 interceptions on the year. The team had a total of 20 picks. Running back Ricky Williams had 1,000 rushing yards. Wide receiver Joe Horn, 1,340 receiving yards. Tackle Kyle Turley was first-team All-Pro, and Saints that were named to the Pro Bowl were Glover, Johnson, Mitchell, Horn, tackle Willie Rofe, and linebacker Mark Fields. Jim Haslett was named Coach of the Year by several organizations. Randy Mueller named NFL Executive of the Year. After an 8-year postseason absence on December 30th, 2000, the Saints would host the Rams in a first-round playoff contest. Some felt the Saints were at a disadvantage with several starters from earlier in the season out with injury, including linebacker Charlie Clemens, who was lost before the regular season with an Achilles tendon injury. This was further compounded when wide receiver Joe Horn was lost in the first quarter of the postseason contest with a leg injury. After a 10-7 halftime lead, wide receiver Willie Jackson stepped up with 3 touchdown catches as the Saints dominated into the early fourth quarter 31-7.
Brooks, 3-step drop, pulls it down, dumps it in the end zone. The catch is made for the touchdown by Jackson. Well, Willie Jackson, the guy looks like he's trying to take over this football game. Throws it up in the direction of Jackson. It's going to be grabbed. He's going to walk in from 10 yards out. Touchdown, New Orleans. Warner, 5-step drop. Saints rush 4. Warner can't find anybody. He's hit from behind. The ball has come free. I think the Saints have covered it with Glover. Absolutely, and that's what they got the pressure on Warner with just the 4 down guys rushing. Gets the big turnover. 3-step drop. He comes it into the end zone. Touchdown, Jackson. His third of the second half.
From there, the Rams would slowly come back with touchdown passes to wide receiver Ricky Prohl and Marshall Faulk, plus a quarterback Kurt Warner run to pull within 3. Turnovers were also a factor in keeping this game close, with Rams having 5 and the Saints 2. But the play most Saints fans will remember occurred with 1:51 remaining, as Jim Henderson calls it.
Going on 4th and 14, will punt it away. He hangs it very high, angling it for the near sideline. Hakeem drops the ball! Hakeem drops the ball! Brian Mill might have fallen on it at the 10-yard line. You gotta be kidding me. And the New Orleans Saints football, Brian Mill, the most unlikely hero of them all, falls on the fumble, the muff by Hakeem. There is a God after all. I think Hakeem was a little bit too casual. Just get up underneath that thing. It's over now. All you gotta do is take a couple of snaps. He who chokes last chokes worse. Oh, I'm going to tell you, I had a knot in my belly, and it wasn't from last night's Mexican food either. Oh, man, well, what a ball game.
Here's another version from ABC.
The Rams are going to get it back. Plenty of time left after the punt, which is Spear caught at the 9-yard line and then fumbled at the 11-yard line. And who has the football? The Saints do. It's almost as if Hakeem nonchalanted the catch.
There's no almost about it, Al. He did nonchalant it.
And Hakeem, who has been prone to fumbles as good as he is, has just fumbled the ball and the ball game away.
And finally, from Westwood 1.
Goins got to keep it away from Oz Hakeem. Sends a high one down the middle, and Hakeem puts it on the ground. Saints cover it. Brian Milne gets it. Game over. Oz Hakeem unbelievably tried to call a fair catch at the 8-yard line, and the ball game's over. Brian Milne recovers it. Incredible. We have seen everything.
Here's fullback Brian Milne.
Oh, I saw that ball in my eye. I'm sure my eyes were big as quarters. And you don't get in this business to make it, to have a decent season, or to make it first round in the playoffs. You get in this business to get that ring.
And here's punter Toby Goen.
At that point in the game, guys were tired, and it was really great job of Brian. He could have let up a little bit, but he hustled down, and one little mistake, it really ended up costing him.
Ironically, Brian Milne would only play for the Saints this one season, but his place in black and gold history is secure in sealing the club's first ever playoff win, 31-28. A week later, the Saints would be eliminated from the playoffs in a 34-16 loss to the Vikings, a contest where running back Chad Morton would tie an NFL postseason record with 13 receptions. He would also have 106 receiving yards, with Willie Jackson getting 125. Ironically, the Vikings would also have dual 100-yard receivers in Randy Moss, 121 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Chris Carter, 120 yards and 1 touchdown. It was a tough loss, but a great season symbolized by players who stepped up in the face of others' adverse injuries and finally brought the Saints to the next level. On January 12, 2001, the Saints notified the state of Louisiana that they wanted out of their lease. Some of the underlying issues included cleaning of the Superdome, along with various taxation issues. By mid-May, the state had made a new offer to the Saints, which was turned down. Then on June 26th, the state canceled its negotiations with the state, and rumors were circulating that the Saints may consider moving to Mississippi. Negotiations resumed, and both parties agreed to a new lease on September the 26th that the state legislature would later ratify and would pay the Saints an average of $18 to $22 million a year. The 2001 on-field situation was truly back and forth, starting with a 24-6 season opening win at Buffalo, where defensive end Joe Johnson had 3 sacks and safety Sammy Knight 3 interceptions. He would end up with 6 interceptions on the season. Linebacker Charlie Clemens returned to the lineup and had 13.5 sacks in 2001. The next week's home game versus the 49ers, along with all other league games, were canceled due to the aftermath of the 9/11 attacks. So following a scheduled bye week, the Saints would play at the New York Giants on September 30th in a highly emotional game as depicted by the pregame ceremonies. The Saints would lose 21-13 on the final play. Wide receiver Willie Jackson caught a touchdown pass, but was called for offensive pass interference, nullifying the score. A week later, in a 28-15 win over the Vikings in the Superdome, Saints defensive back Chris Oldham would score.
3rd down and 10 at midfield. Culpepper again getting time, looking for a receiver, loses the ball. It's still loose, and the Saints have it, and they may have 6. Chris Oldham runs it in for the touchdown. 38 yards on the fumble by Dante Culpepper.
Also in the contest, the Saints defense would prevent this Viking scoring attempt.
Culpepper going deep for Chris Carter. He's beat the defense, and Carter meeting Mathis loses the ball in the end zone, and the Saints, they have recovered, and they do for a touchdown. As Sammy Knight recovered it just before the ball went out of the end zone.
On October 14th, the Saints beat Carolina 27-25 and just the third time in club history did so on the last play via a touchdown.
1 second left. Ricky Williams going for the end zone. Touchdown, Saints win.
They go set everything up to the right side of the football field. They pitch the ball back left to Ricky Williams and Willie Rope. Wally Williams, they get the job done. Ricky scampers into the end zone with a touchdown.
Unbelievable finish.
Following a loss at Atlanta, the Saints would win a truly wacky contest at St. Louis on October 28th. The Rams would have a 24-6 lead at halftime that gradually eroded in the third quarter.
Horn makes the catch and he might score. In fact, he's going to. And the Saints come out firing and get closer to the Rams.
Two missed tackles. Dexter McLean comes in there, tries to make the tackle. They didn't wrap up, and Joe Horn just runs right out of it.
Warner gets rid of the ball. The ball is intercepted. Bounced off Sammy Knight, and he's got it. Sammy Knight still on his feet down to the 15, and they have the ball. Carney from 44 yards out again, and he hits another. Great fly from a yard deep in the end zone. And a fumble, and the Saints have it again. Bly lost the ball.
What a turn of events.
Wow. Brooks, touchdown. Joe Horn works his way loose. Here's Brooks going for a bundle. Touchdown. A strike to Willie Jackson. And the Saints have the lead.
Despite the Rams turning the ball over 8 times, they were able to tie the game midway through the fourth at 31-all. Then, with just over 4 minutes to go,
Warner steps up and drops it. Ball's loose and the Saints have it. Now it's Chris Oldham who came up with it. Fred Thomas knocked it loose.
the Saints afterwards slowly drove down the field for the winning points.
5 seconds. Rams are offside again. The field goal's good anyway.
Offside, 32 defense. The penalty is declined. Field goal is good.
Final score, Saints 34, Rams 31. During warm-ups before this game, tackle William Rofe did not play, for he was having difficulty putting pressure on his injured leg. He would go in and out of the lineup until being put on injured reserve 3 weeks later. On Sunday Night Football versus the Jets in the Superdome, the Saints would lose 16-9 in a defensive struggle. What's remembered most is offensive tackle Kyle Turley defending his teammate Aaron Brooks by going after Jets defensive back Damian Robinson, who wouldn't let go of Brooks' face mask. Turley came out of the scuffle with Robinson's helmet in hand and threw it across the field, resulting in his ejection.
Damian Robinson has gotten him by the face mask, and he's just turning his head. That's a 15-yard penalty, but ripping off the headgear and throwing it all the way across the field is just losing your cool.
Then, long after the play, 68 threw his helmet and had an obscene gesture. He is ejected 15 yards against New Orleans.
The Saints would lose valuable field position near the goal line stemming from the resulting penalty and fall short of victory. After 10 games, the Saints were 5-5 when they would win 2 in a row. First, 27-23 at home over Carolina. That included this wacky play.
Flea flicker time as Brooks is looking downfield. There's Horn. Oh, the offensive. Oh, my. A touchdown taken away by a man in a striped shirt downfield. Wow. Back judge Phil Luckett. Wide open going downfield. You expect us to put the umpire close to the line of scrimmage, but not downfield. My goodness.
With 1:35 remaining, the Saints had to come back thanks to this touchdown.
Brooks off the clock, going for the corner, runs it all. Touchdown, Joe Holbert. And that play alone, and Horn doing a great job of calling the ball in.
The second win was at Atlanta 28-10, which included Saints 2001 first-round pick running back Deuce McAllister scoring his first NFL touchdown on a 54-yard run. A pivotal Monday night game would follow on December 17th versus the Rams. The Saints would lose 34-21, which was sealed midway through the fourth quarter when Aaron Brooks threw an interception to the Rams' Dre Bly near the goal line. Deuce McAllister had 163 kick return yards, the Rams' defense 5 sacks, the Saints' defense 4, but penalties ruled the game. Rams with 11, the Saints with 16 penalties for 132 yards. Following the game, the Saints would suspend wide receiver Albert Connell, their leading free agent acquisition from the offseason, for the season's remainder over allegations of stealing from his teammates. The club would take a huge slide from there, as they would lose their remaining 3 games to fall to 7-9 and give up 126 points to set a Saints record for most points given up in a 3-game stretch, a collapse that threw off even the most diehard of Saints fans. And now it's time for another Saints Timeout. It was definitely a different feel for Super Bowl Sunday, February 3rd, 2002, in the Louisiana Superdome, with it being the first one held since the 9/11 attacks some 5 months earlier, with no one being allowed to park on Superdome property for security reasons. The 14-2 Rams under head coach Mike Martz, featuring the greatest show on turf, took on the 11-5 Patriots under Bill Belichick. The 14-point underdog New England squad caught many off guard by having a 17-3 lead through 3 quarters, largely thanks to Rams' turnovers.
Pass to let go, picked off. Ty Law down the sidelines, touchdown. The rush by McGinnis is what caused it. Here's Brady back, firing end zone, touchdown. David Patton made a great catch.
New England almost added another defensive touchdown in the fourth quarter, but a defensive holding penalty nullified it. Shortly afterwards, the Rams came back with 2 touchdowns, including the tying score with 1:30 left in regulation.
Touchdown Rams.
And watch Kurt Warner's just a quarterback sneak. He just gets right in behind his big center, Andy McCollum.
Warner lost it, and Ricky Prohl is going to score.
You see it, it's a little pick. Start inside, Ricky Prohl goes to the outside, makes a move there to Bucky Jones, and takes it back to the inside.
So without any timeouts remaining, Belichick had his Patriots drive downfield and kick the winning Adam Vinatieri 48-yard field goal as time expired.
Vinatieri and making some great kicks against the Raiders. 2 of the greatest kicks that I've ever seen in my life.
Here comes one of greater importance if he makes it. And it's right down the pipe. Adam Vinatieri, no time on the clock, and the Patriots have won Super Bowl 36. Unbelievable.
That's the way you should win a Super Bowl. I mean, they come in here against all odds, and they drove the ball down and got in field goal position. That was a great, great drive.
Patriots quarterback Tom Brady was awarded the game MVP. The 72,922 fans in attendance were definitely given a game to remember. The offseason leading into the 2002 campaign was filled with change, with running back Deuce McAllister becoming a starter. Ricky Williams was traded in early March to the Dolphins for 2 first-round picks. Free agent departures included defensive tackle Roy Glover and defensive end Joe Johnson. Veteran tackle William Rofe asked for and was traded to the Chiefs for a 3rd-round pick. The Saints signed free agent defensive back Dale Carter. However, he would be suspended for the first 8 games of the regular season for violating the NFL's banned substance policy. The Saints' 2 first-round college draft choices were wide receiver Dante Stallworth and defensive end Charles Grant. The biggest offseason news was the firing of general manager Randy Mueller on May 9th. Story goes Mueller was fired for not signing a 3-year contract extension with no raise. Others felt owner Tom Benson was upset over other issues, including Falcons owner Arthur Blank talking to Mueller. 4 days later, Mickey Loomis was elevated to the GM position. 1 day before the regular season opener, quarterback Aaron Brooks received a 6-year contract extension worth $36 million. The club's campaign began on September 8th at Tampa Bay, where the Bucs scored 10 points in the last 2:47 of regulation to tie the game at 20. After 2 sets of possessions in the extra period, the Bucs special teams gave away the winning touchdown.
Chuba, 8 yards deep in his end zone. Punts it away. Saints have pressure. They've got him in the end zone. They've got him. He throws it into the arms of a Saint for a touchdown. James Allen. Gotta be Fred McAfee who got him in the back of the end zone. And the Saints have one of the most thrilling victories in this team's history.
Final score, Saints 26-20. The Saints would go 7-2, which included a come-from-behind win over the Bears with 1:18 left.
2nd and 8, 29-yard line. Brooks gets rid of it quickly. Stallworth breaks free. Dante Stallworth. Touchdown Saints, and they take the lead.
A semi-night interception afterwards would seal the 29-23 victory. In a 43-27 win at the Redskins on October 13th, Michael Lewis would set a club precedent by scoring touchdowns via kickoff and punt returns.
Coming up short for Michael Lewis at the 10. Lewis takes it outside. Good speed. And there he goes. Michael Lewis takes it to the house. Touchdown Saints. Ryan Barker's first punt of the game. Michael Lewis lets it bounce. And he plays it on the roll. Tries to get outside. Picks up a couple of blocks. Watch out. Here comes Lewis. He may go again. Michael Lewis. Touchdown. His 2nd of the game. His first ever punt return for a touchdown. 83 yards.
Lewis would finish the season with 2,432 kick and punt return yards combined and make the Pro Bowl, along with wide receiver Joe Horn, running back Deuce McAllister, and special teams coverage ace Fred McAfee. On October 27th, a high-scoring contest took place versus the Falcons. Running back Warrick Dunn fumbled with 3:33 to go, recovered by Saints' Fred Thomas, allowing Deuce McAllister to give the Saints the lead with 2:26 to go on this 16-yard run.
Deuce McAllister. Touchdown. He just puts his head down and just runs over the DB back there for Atlanta.
However, the Falcons would get one more drive, and Jay Feely would kick the winning 47-yard field goal in the last play of the game, 37-35 Atlanta. The November 10th contest at Carolina should be remembered for the Saints driving 95 yards late in the fourth quarter and taking the lead on a Brooks to Dante Stallworth 7-yard touchdown pass with 37 seconds to go. Defensive end Charles Grant scoring a 34-yard fumble return for touchdown afterwards, 34-24 Saints. However, in what some recognize as the swing game in head coach Jim Haslett's Saints career, Brooks walked off the field before the last play of the first half over not wanting to run a certain play. Media reports stated that players were further upset when Haslett caved into Brooks's fit. The imbalance of chemistry, discipline, and authority would lead the Saints to a bumpy ride where they fell to 7-4, then won 2 in a row where Brooks was showing the effects of what was later diagnosed as a torn shoulder tendon and missed the last 2 minutes versus the Bucs and the second half of the Ravens game, replaced by Jake Delhomme. The Saints were now 9-4 and needed to win 1 out of their last 3 games to make the playoffs. It was a season where at times the club played up when opponents were favored and played down to underdogs. The Saints would lose on December 15th to the Vikings 32-31, where wide receiver Randy Moss catches a 13-yard touchdown pass with 5 seconds left, followed by Vikings quarterback Dante Culpepper's clinching 2-point conversion attempt.
Culpepper making an audible, drops the ball, picks it up, he's going to go in for, and he make it! Dante Culpepper gets 2, and the Vikings sideline has gone nuts.
A week later, the Saints would lose at Cincinnati 20-13, giving the Bengals only their second win of the season on a fullback Nick Lachey 3-yard touchdown run with 1:50 to go. In what turned out to be the club's season finale versus Carolina, the Saints defense for the only time that season held an opponent to under 20 points. With the Saints down 10-6 and 41 seconds to go from the Carolina 40-yard line on third down, Aaron Brooks didn't see 2 open receivers downfield.
Brooks rolls away and throws, and it's intercepted. Terry Cousin, and the New Orleans Saints are done.
Years later, an anonymous member of the 2002 squad stated in a newspaper article that players just wanted to get into the postseason, even if it meant Brooks needed to be benched for Jake Delhomme. When asked about the quarterback situation a day after the Carolina game, Jim Haslett stated, quote, "You don't take out the general and put in the sergeant," close quote. The offseason leading into 2003 saw quarterback Jake Delhomme leave in free agency for Carolina and helped them get to the Super Bowl. The Saints elected to use a 2002 updated clause in their lease with Nicholls State University to end training camp there in return for a $50,000 buyout and moved it to their Metairie training facility. The Saints started 1-4 in the regular season, which included wide receiver Dante Stallworth receiving a head injury on opening day at Seattle that some felt contributed to his limited play all season. The club's 2003 first-round draft choice, defensive tackle Jonathan Sullivan, also played sparingly, with one report stating he was allowed to miss 3 games over cutting a finger with a steak knife. On Sunday night, September 28th, the Colts won 55-21, where New Orleans native Peyton Manning has 6 touchdown passes for Indianapolis, and the Saints had 4 turnovers. Saints radio network host Buddy Diliberto had some interesting commentary after the game.
It was the biggest embarrassment in the history of the Saints. Yes, I know they were 1-15 in 1980, but even that team didn't quit on the coach like this one quit on Jim Haslett tonight, especially on defense. Tom Benson earlier this week said, "Keep the faith, this is a good football team." Benson's a Catholic, and maybe he should go to confession after that statement. The only thing to be thankful for tonight is that this performance didn't happen in Saddam Hussein's Iraq. Otherwise, they would have had hands cut off and many put into the torture chambers. Thank God it's America.
Back-to-back wins over the Bears and Falcons would follow. Then on October 26th, at home versus the Panthers, the Saints tied the game at 20 on a John Carney 42-yard field goal with 36 seconds to go. Then in overtime on a 4th down play, the Saints go for it.
It will be and it's recovered by Carolina. Do you believe that? Oh, it's Julius Peppers. Look at Peppers come in and make the play of the game for this Carolina defense.
The resulting turnover led to this Carolina winning field goal.
31 yards, Casey, and it's good. Saints' third game winner in OT.
Final score 23-20 Carolina. A week later at Tampa Bay, the Bucks tied at 20 with 2:08 to go on a 30-yard touchdown catch by Keenan McCardell. The Saints in turn drive down the field for this winning score.
Good snap, good hold. It's up, and it splits the uprights. John Carney officially from 47 yards away with 8 seconds left.
After a bye week, yet another down-to-the-wire contest, this time in the Superdome on brand-new field turf versus Atlanta. The Saints were down 20-3 at halftime, but came back, and once again, John Carney is called to tie the game late.
26-yard attempt for John Carney. Berger is the holder. Spot down, kick is up, and it's good. We are tied at 20 apiece.
Deuce McAllister would once again, uncharacteristically, fumble in the extra period.
To get the victory, but he's got it right there and a lot more. He's still going. Deuce, 20, 15, 10, 5, and take it down right there. Ball is loose. Fumble, and the Falcons have come up with it. Gerard Bolton making a big play for Atlanta, and Matt Stewart picked it up.
But the Falcons would miss the ensuing game-winning field goal attempt. Then the Saints drove down the field where Carney proved his worth once again.
36 yards out, spot down. Carney puts it on its way. It is up, it is good, and it is over.
Final score, Saints 23-20. At this point, the club was 5-5 and would go on to finish 8-8, including a 45-7 win at home over the Giants, where Aaron Brooks had 5 touchdown passes, and wide receiver Joe Horn drew a 15-yard unsportsmanlike penalty for pulling out a cell phone from under a goalpost padding after scoring.
You don't think he found it by accident, right? Somebody might have just left it there by accident, and he just sort of glanced at it.
On December 21st, at Jacksonville, the Saints thought they had pulled off one of the most unbelievable comebacks in NFL history. Down by 7 on the last play with what was later called the River City Relay.
From the shotgun, Brooks pumps, throws down the near sideline to Stallworth, and Stallworth tries to get away from some people and does to the 38-yard line. He needs a block. He needs a couple there. They're going to lateral the ball to Michael Lewis. Michael Lewis tries to stay alive. He'll lateral it to Deuce. Deuce needing help. He laterals across the field, and the Saints are going to take it in with Pathan. If this is legal, they've done it. Jerome Pathan diving into the end zone.
I mean, you can't tell me that I just witnessed what I just saw take place.
But it just wasn't meant to be.
Pending the extra point by John Carney. And he missed.
No!
He missed the extra point wide right. Oh, my God. How could he do that? This one is over. He just pushed it out to the right, and it wasn't even close.
Final score, 20-19 Jacksonville. The Saints had been eliminated from the playoffs earlier in the game when Dallas had won their contest. Deuce McAllister would set a Saints record with 9 straight 100-yard rushing games. He also had 1,641 yards. McAllister and guard LaCharles Bentley were named to the Pro Bowl. Aaron Brooks would lead the NFL with the lowest interception percentage, but in turn fumbled the ball away 14 times. Joe Horn had 78 receptions, and defensive end Charles Grant had 10 sacks. And now it's time for another Saints timeout. What we'll call the first incarnation of the New Orleans Voodoo Arena football team began in 1998 when Saints owner Tom Benson committed to purchasing the expansion franchise, which started play in February of 2004 in the New Orleans Arena and went 11-5 and won the Southern Division before losing 47-44 in first-round playoff action to Colorado. Head coach Mike New was named Coach of the Year, Rita LeBlanc Executive of the Year. Some of the recognized players included quarterback John Fitzgerald, fullback linebacker Dan Curran, lineman Tim Martin, safety Monty Montgomery, and wide receivers Aaron Bailey and Lamont Moore. The 2005 squad ended up 9-7 in no playoffs. Andy Kelly became starting quarterback. Monty Montgomery was cut in April of 2005 after being late for several team meetings and workouts, plus was ejected for touching officials in 2 games. Noteworthy names included linemen B.J. Cohen and Mike Landry, safety Alvin Porter, wide receivers Aaron Bailey, Tabidi Davis, Jacques Rumpf, and Carl Bond. Chris Pointer led in tackles. The team would fold for a year due to the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, where all contracted players were sent to an expansion team in Kansas City for the 2006 season. 2005 wasn't good for the Saints, starting with the passing of former Dome Patrol linebacker Sam Mills on April 18th at age 45 from intestinal cancer. In addition, the Saints were continuing renegotiations with the state over its existing deal. Ticket sales were down, causing for the first time since 2000 no preseason home games to be broadcast live in the New Orleans market. Concerns grew during the day of August 26 as the evening forecast path of Hurricane Katrina was coming close to the mouth of the Mississippi River as a major hurricane. So immediately after that night's loss to the Ravens in the Superdome 21-6, the Saints organization moved their operations to San Jose, California. Katrina would make landfall near sunrise on August 29th near Port Sulphur, Louisiana, and moved due north with sustained winds of 125 to 145 miles per hour and a storm surge that damaged a large portion of the northern Gulf Coast, including the Louisiana Superdome, which incurred significant flooding and roof damage along with destruction from looters. After their September 1st preseason finale at Oakland, a 13-6 loss, the Saints would make their temporary home in San Antonio, Texas. On the morning of the club's regular season opener, September 11th, news was secretly leaked by Saints administrator Arnie Philco to the media, Commissioner Paul Tagliabue, and Governor Kathleen Blanco that Tom Benson may try to keep the Saints in San Antonio permanently via a force majeure clause in his state contract that would nullify it if the Superdome was deemed unplayable due to a natural disaster. Commissioner Tagliabue would make arrangements for the club's September 18th home game versus the Giants to be moved to Monday night at Giants Stadium as a fundraiser for the American Red Cross. 3 home games in San Antonio would also be established, with another 4 home games to Baton Rouge's Tiger Stadium. 2 significant announcements came on October 17th as Arnie Philco was fired by Tom Benson over the earlier media leak, and San Antonio Mayor Phil Hardberger publicly states that Tom Benson has agreed to talk at season's end over keeping the team in that city permanently. Countless Saints fans' upset feelings over this news was surmised by the following editorial with Saints Radio Network play-by-play man Jim Henderson.
Well, the gloves are coming off in San Antonio, while back in New Orleans, we're still trying to figure out what can be put back together. Benson's only response on the record was, "I'm not going to make any comments about it until the end of the season." With each passing day, our displaced franchise grows more comfortable in its new temporary home. In their new surroundings, they become more isolated and less sensitive to the destruction they left behind. That's easy to understand if you don't live here, if you don't see the ravaged landscape with your own eyes, if you don't live with the uncertainty every morning brings, the fears that interrupt every night. I didn't like what I heard there yesterday from certain coaches and players about what a burden it will be on them to have to go on the road for 8 straight games, though 4 of those 8 return the Saints to Louisiana and Baton Rouge. No one can possibly say if those 4 games in Baton Rouge will be the prelude to a season-long homecoming next year while the Superdome is being repaired, or a brief hug to say goodbye to fans who embraced them for 4 decades. But if some dollars could be sacrificed while doing the right thing morally, if not the righter thing financially, it would make more sense to me. To me, that would be the legacy of a man would wish to leave behind, that of a life well lived instead of a life dedicated to the end, to living well at the expense of those who so long have provided it. A Saints fan displaced to San Antonio put it best. Taking our team now under these circumstances would be like stealing a dead man's wallet. The mayor has his hand in our pocket. I guess the choice is to report the crime or help him roll over the body to make it easier.
Not long after, Commissioner Tagliabue sets up a committee to ensure NFL owners will not approve the permanent San Antonio move. In late October, Benson had a full-page ad published in the Times-Picayune, where ironically he misspelled his old high school, St. Aloysius. The premise of the letter was to imply he wanted to return to New Orleans, but certain conditions had to be met. A quote contributed to him in the advertisement stated, "It is too early to determine, but my desire is to return to New Orleans." There was great difficulty in getting tickets to the first Baton Rouge base game on October 30th, where many fans couldn't get into the stadium until the second quarter. Some media outlets reported this was possibly a misleading attempt to show that fans didn't want to come back. It was later reported that ticket sales in San Antonio were overly inflated. Another report stated that Benson told many employees that the team's Metairie facility was destroyed by both Katrina's winds and FEMA using it for a few weeks as a distribution point. However, local media cameras clearly showed that was not the case, and the Saints could have moved back during their mid-November bye week. Many contributed the bad win-loss record to Benson's misgivings, in addition to a lack of proper facilities in San Antonio, including the club's offices for a time were in a condemned building. And once a team practice was canceled because an ROTC team was using the field for a rehearsal. The Alamo Dome wasn't always available due to other events being booked there. The media frenzy likely reached a summit on October 30th when Tom Benson attacked a TV cameraman when leaving Tiger Stadium. 3 days later, Benson sent an email to the NFL front office stating he wouldn't return to Tiger Stadium out of fear for his own and family's safety, but later that season he would return. On November 6th, ESPN's John Saunders had likely one of the best media replies to the incident.
Now, I'm sure New Orleans Saints owner Tom Benson is an intelligent man, but last week he joined what I feel is one of the dumbest groups on the planet. Famous people who attack cameramen. Are they missing the obvious here? The guy has a camera. I mean, this is as dumb as trying to rob a police station. Do they think they're invisible? Maybe they'll think it's their evil twin. Maybe they think if they break the camera, there'll be no evidence. Now, Benson made his situation worse this week when he sent a memo to the commissioner's office saying he would not return to Baton Rouge for fear of harm to him and his family. Why doesn't he do what his fans used to do and wear a bag over his head? Now, please, the people of Louisiana are still too busy dealing with a hurricane to worry about a lot of hot air.
Eventually, the situation would calm down, as on December 30th, the Saints agreed to come back in a formal press conference with Tom Benson at the Metairie facility.
The current Saints management team has decided that returning to the practice facility in Metairie is the best interest of our football team and the right thing to do for the New Orleans community. As we move forward together, the Saints look forward to serving as a leader in the rebuilding and revitalization of our great community.
3 days later, on January 2nd, 2006, head coach Jim Haslett is fired. He attempted to step down after 12 games, but general manager Mickey Loomis refused to accept his resignation. On January 12th, Benson and outgoing Commissioner Tagliabue hold a joint press conference at the team's Metairie facility. Here's Paul Tagliabue, followed by Tom Benson.
Mr. Benson's already committed beyond 2006. He's made it clear that this is not just a one-off for one season, it's a multi-year effort, but that it's going to have to be a mutual partnership and that we're going to have to develop benchmarks.
Well, you know, I've committed forever as long as the community commits to me. That's all we asking. And we here, okay? And we committed. Now, let's go forward from there.
17 days after that, the NFL agrees to give $20 million to help with Superdome rebuilding. And now we'll look more at the football side of the organization. In January 2005, Saints head coach Jim Haslett fired Mike McCarthy, stating that the offensive coordinator's playbook was too complicated and too thick, wanting to simplify things for quarterback Aaron Brooks. Assistant coach Mike Shepard was elevated to the coordinator position. McCarthy later won a Super Bowl as Green Bay's head coach. In one of the more emotional games in Saints history, the club would go to Carolina on September 11th, receiving a standing ovation from the visiting fans. The Panthers tied the game with 1:07 to go on a 46-yard John Casey field goal. Then the Saints drove from their own 22-yard line and with 7 seconds left lined up for victory.
Hauser to snap it. He does. Bauman puts it down. The kick is up. Has the distance, and it is good! He's hit it from 47 yards out with 3 seconds left, and the Saints have taken the lead 23-20.
I'll tell you what, I mean, you could tell that it was heading that direction because all those people that were standing up in that end zone just went silent, and you knew it was going through. And I looked and before the officials or anybody did anything, I saw Kenny Wilkins' hands go up in the air.
23-20 winners in one of the most memorable games in New Orleans Saints history, given the circumstance.
The next week, the club played an unofficial home game in Upper New Jersey versus the Giants with a rather emotional pregame ceremony. Saints would lose 27-10, with the only real highlight being running back Deuce McAllister becoming the team's all-time leading rusher. His final total after the 2008 season was 6,098 yards. Some felt Jim Haslett's public comments on this game, being played so far away from the Saints headquarters, being a terrible idea, gave his team an excuse not to play well. Those comments, combined with the overall team setup, greatly contributed to the Saints finishing the season 3-13. Some notes include October 2nd in a 52-3 loss at Green Bay, the second biggest margin of defeat in club history at the time, where McAllister was lost for the season with a knee injury. October 16th in San Antonio versus the Falcons. The Saints tied the game with 51 seconds to go on a 15-yard touchdown pass from Aaron Brooks to wide receiver Devery Henderson. Then Atlanta comes back where their initial 41-yard field goal attempt is missed, but the Saints' Tony Bryant is called for defensive holding, resulting in the Falcons' second attempt from 36 yards out to be good as time expired, 34-31 Atlanta. On November 6th, the Bears kept the football for most of the last 4:08 in the contest at the Saints' first regular season game in Baton Rouge's Tiger Stadium and kicked the winning field goal from 28 yards out, 20-17 Bears. 2 weeks later at New England, the Saints were down by 7 where they drove late from their own 22-yard line to the Patriots' 22. But with 9 seconds left, Aaron Brooks throws an interception to seal a 24-17 Patriots victory. On November 27th, the Saints hold on to a 21-19 win at the Jets with Mike Nugent missing a 53-yard field goal for New York with 10 seconds left. A week later, the Saints lose 10-3 to Tampa Bay in Baton Rouge with 1:30 to go. Aaron Brooks throws an interception to Bucs cornerback Rondé Barber, who has 3 on the day. 2 interesting developments occurred going into the team's Monday night game at Atlanta on December 12th. First, defensive end Desmond Howard was suspended for the remaining 4 games over disagreements with Jim Haslett concerning the overall team setup in San Antonio. Second, Westwood One Radio's Jim Gray interviewed Aaron Brooks leading into the game, which aired at halftime, where Brooks criticized team owner Tom Benson over not spending enough money on facilities in San Antonio, and when Gray stated that Brooks' verbal support for Haslett sounded, quote, lukewarm at best, close quote, Brooks replied, quote, hey man, it is what it is, close quote. Haslett's anger upon learning of the interview led to Brooks being benched for the final 3 games, for Haslett felt all the effort he went to in defending Brooks since naming him the full-time starter in 2001 went unappreciated. The final close game of the year was Christmas Eve in San Antonio versus the Lions. The Saints take the lead with 1:55 to go on a John Carney 20-yard field goal, 12-10. The Lions then drove from their own 21-yard line and win on the last play with a 39-yard field goal, 13-12. Concern had come out on how each day the team would be based in San Antonio, the more distance on personnel would become in terms of the problems many fans and non-fans alike were going through on the northern Gulf Coast. That was symbolized after the Lions loss by guard Kendall Jaycox, who told the media that at least in San Antonio, fans don't boo. When the calendar's page would turn to 2006, a much brighter year would be on the horizon for the black and gold, with the rewards much more than even the biggest of diehards could expect.